Hello, this is Rick Chambers with the Center Education Foundation. We are here today with Claudia White from the class of 1984 to talk about Don Shaffer. Claudia is a professional flutist and plays with the Orlando Philharmonic, along with some other professional musician gigs, as they call it in the business. And Claudia's going to share some memories and stories of her time with Don Shaffer. So Claudia, what just in general, what impact did Don have on you as a student and on your choice of careers?
Well, he had a huge impact. Obviously, since I'm a musician, I cannot imagine my life without music in it. And that all started with Mr. Shaffer. I was one of the lucky kids that went to Redbridge Elementary, and he lived right down the street. And at some point, there was a gap in the elementary band director position, and Mr. Shaffer took it, even though he was still, at the time, the director of the high school. So I started with Mr. Shaffer in the 5th grade band when we had band in the boiler room in the basement of the grade school. It was really awful. You look back now and you're like, wow, they were sending all these kids down past the big giant boiler, down these rickety steps. But man, we all went down there, and every lesson with him from 5th grade through high school was, full of what I'm sure you've heard from everyone else, the Don Shaffer life lessons. And, but I can't imagine how I would have ever gotten through school, especially high school, without band. I mean, he was just a huge part in all of our lives. And so I would never have been a musician, ever. I was going to be a veterinarian. And somehow just his infectious love of music and music making and taking that into your life to, create good human beings. I think that was his big gift to all of us. And, you don't realize that when you're a little kid or even in high school. I think a lot of us got a good idea that that was what we were learning in high school. But, it's looking back on that now, I just think what a gift, what a special gift we all had to have him in our lives. And like I said, I feel especially lucky that I started as a musician, as a flute player with him. He taught me to play the fingering for D and E flat wrong, though. So I spent half my life unlearning that, and I torture my own students with that. And somebody asked me, like, I don't know, maybe my freshman year of college, and I said, I learned to play from a trumpet player. Come on. So so that was really amazing to get to have him in my life for all those years. And then, now I don't know if people have talked about, with all the weirdness of social media, the bright spot of Facebook was Don Shaffer being on Facebook. Because he would put up poems and these beautiful photographs. And anytime there was anything going on in your life, he would comment with like the most perfect, like inspiring, still teaching all these years later comments. And it was just, he never stopped giving to the students, never stopped inspiring. And, so I think that's why everyone is so willing and happy to talk about him.
Yeah, wonderful memories. Are there any specific pieces of music that you remember that were memorable?
Oh my gosh, I was thinking about this specifically, and I have to say, we used to end, I think it was the last concert of the year, we used to play Percy Granger's Danny Boy, which is called the London Derriere, which we always called the London Derriere.
High school kids, right?
I cannot play that piece to this day without thinking about Mr. Shaffer and without, like getting worked up. And my parents are the same way. Anytime they hear it at a concert or anything, or if it's on the radio, my dad will call me and say, oh, I heard that piece. You guys used to play that in the band. It was always so good. And so that's the big piece that I think about. I know we played lots of other things, but that's just like, that's the Mr. Shaffer piece for me.
Were there any performances that stick in your mind as memorable?
Well, I really, surprisingly, I never played the flute in the marching band. I was on the flag team for my freshman and sophomore year. I was in the first class that they brought freshmen back to the high school. So I was on the flag team for 2 years, and then I was the drum major for 2 years. And so I think the most memorable things, which is weird for me now being a classical musician, but I look back at marching band as being the thing that I really, really remember. And I was not in marching band ever again, not in college, because they didn't want music majors in the marching band. You had to go practice. But yeah, so I just remember like our band was so good, and he really like just instilled, that when he would get on the speaker and say, band, are you ready? And we would say, we were born ready, sir. So those are the big things. I just think that marching band was so great, and I never got to do anything ever like that again in my life. So those are the performances. You would think I would remember playing some great symphonic piece in band, but I really don't. I just remember marching band being so good.
Well, and being a drum major, that's a very memorable experience to have that role in the marching band, and especially under
Yeah.
somebody like Don Shaffer. That had to be
Yeah,
a
it was the
wonderful
first
time.
girl.
Oh, super. Very cool. Very cool.
And the funny thing about Mr. Shaffer was, still do have a sister who's 4 years older than me. So I knew she wasn't in the band, and she said that was always like her big regret, was that she was never in the band. She was in the choir, which, we all loved choir too. But so I knew and looked up to Mr. Shaffer's two daughters, and Tom was, I think 3 years older than me. So he was the drum major my freshman year. And I just thought, that's what I've got to do,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. Did the band take any trips while you were part of the program?
We did, but we didn't do any of the big things like, playing in a bowl parade or anything. I don't remember us doing, like, I think we did small trips, like maybe to St. Louis or something like that. And we always did I was always involved in the all-state band and the all-district band, things like that. But I was trying to think about that, but I don't really remember us. I think we just did sort of local things. We didn't go on any big, like let's go to California kind of things.
Right. Right. I was sharing with some of the band directors that followed Don, and there was a trip to the Cotton Bowl in Dallas one year, which was played on New Year's Day at that time, and they had a parade the day before, and it snowed in Dallas, and that was many big huge snowflakes, and so
Yeah.
there are some trips that have been memorable, and
Yeah,
that was
I
certainly one of them.
I would have to ask some of the people that, am I just not remembering this? But I know we didn't march in any big things like that when I was there.
Yeah, cool. Don was also very involved in the community. Did you have any exposure to that as a student or since you graduated?
Yeah, actually, funny enough that after I graduated, my dad worked at Hallmark for 46 years, his whole career. And so I loved it when I worked there for 2 summers during college. And after Mr. Shaffer retired, and he went and worked at Hallmark and started the Hallmark band and everything.
Right.
So I would love going down, and if he saw me, like I went down and sat in on a Hallmark band rehearsal one day, and he acted like the Queen of England had come in. He made this big stink about me coming in and playing with the band, and it was so funny, and it was so fun. And I just thought, these people must wonder, who is this kid coming into Hallmark to play in the band, because I was, didn't know what I was doing, and, in a big corporation that my dad worked at. So, but his work with, I thought, what a great fit, for him to go take. And that's when I really thought, here's the real lessons we've learned from Mr. Shaffer, or if you're earlier on time, I'm sure you've heard that from every single person you've interviewed.
Right.
Indication, appearance is an indication of attitude. That was the one I always loved. Because there was some kid that always forgot his black shoes, and one time Mr. Shaffer spray painted his socks black. And so I just, some of the community things, we did the big band fruit sales and stuff like that to raise money for the band. And I just remember being out, especially living in Redbridge and I mean, he only lived maybe 3-4 blocks from my family, but everybody knows Mr. Shaffer. Everybody knew Mr. Shaffer in the community, especially around the neighborhood that we lived in. He was like the mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other things you would like to share with the world?
Oh boy. I just think, I keep saying what a gift it was. And I really just think that he and especially Shirley, just what a model of family and marriage and kindness that they gave. I mean, just the countless hours that you look back now as an adult and you just think, how did he have the time? How did they have the time to give so freely and so lovingly to generations of us who were his students? And I wish that I had, been able to articulate that to him. But I think he knew how much we all loved him. And so I just think, I don't think that comes along very often. So, I'm really happy that people are memorializing him in this way, that people will remember what a truly special person he was.
Wonderful. Well, Claudia, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your memories, and obviously a very positive influence on your life, as he was for so many people in our community. So thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, Rick.